Lieutenant Charles Albert Varnum, a brave junior officer in the cavalry, composed a deeply personal letter to his mother and father on the 4th of July, 1876, merely a week following the infamous Battle of the Little Bighorn. Brimming with sincere feeling and thoughtful consideration, Varnum recounts the epic narrative of the U.S. Army's doomed conflict against the united warriors of the Lakota, Cheyenne, and Arapaho nations. Being among the small number of officers from the 7th Cavalry to survive, his correspondence offers an intimate and uncommon glimpse into the chaos and carnage of that fateful engagement, underscoring the valor and loss of his fellow soldiers, the tactical prowess of their Native American foes, and the personal struggles of a young man facing war's brutal truths. So please, get comfortable, relax, and accompany me as we explore this gripping historical account together on Rootvolutionary. Dear Father and Mother, I am composing this to you from our bivouac beside the Yellowstone River on this 4th of July, 1876. An opportunity has arisen to dispatch a letter, so I shall describe the events that have transpired since I last wrote. On the 22nd of June, General Custer commanded our full regiment, numbering approximately 605, accompanied by my detachment of some 36 scouts, trackers, and interpreters, moving out along the Rosebud River, following an Indian trail located by Major Reno. We marched about 12 miles that initial day, and roughly 32 or 33 on the second. At dawn on the third day, we identified a significant trail leading westward along the Rosebud. Some 10 miles from our temporary camp, we discovered a circular area surrounded by a brush fence constructed for a sun dance, a ceremony I have previously explained to you, used for initiating new braves. Close by, we located a pole bearing a recently taken scalp, along with the footprints of 2 or 3 Indians, probably made that same morning. We advanced 20 miles, after which I was ordered back 6 miles to check a creek to detect any indications that the Indians had diverged from the path. Upon my return, we proceeded an additional 8 miles and made camp at the location of a native village, abandoned about 2 days prior. All indicators pointed to a massive gathering, and our intention was to strike them unawares. Custer visited the scouts and the 6 Crow scouts accompanying us, who possessed excellent knowledge of the territory, stated the path ahead led in the direction of the Little Horn River, a tributary of the Big Horn. They intended to travel another 20 miles to a high peak that provided a view over the Little Horn Valley. Custer required a dependable white man to accompany them and relay information. I led the 6 Crows, 5 Rees, and a seasoned white frontiersman, and we traveled through the night, moving nearly 60 miles. I had been in the saddle for 36 continuous hours, with no opportunity for rest or sleep. General Custer intended to begin his march at 11 p.m. and reach our location by daybreak. At 2:30 in the morning, we attained the summit and hid ourselves in the undergrowth until first light. At sunrise, we observed smoke from a native encampment. By 5 a.m., I dispatched the Rees to carry a report back to General Custer. The Crow Scouts indicated they saw some 2,000 to 3,000 ponies on the plain, almost 12 miles distant, though I could not verify this personally. General Custer's column was around 8 miles away, and he got my communication at 8 a.m. He resumed his advance and met us on the high ground. In the interim, 2 Sioux braves were seen moving toward Custer's troops. Charlie Reynolds, the Crow interpreter, 2 Crow Scouts, and I moved to cut them off and prevent them from exposing the general's location. Regrettably, we were not successful. When Custer reached us, we told him what had occurred, and he resolved to launch an immediate assault since our element of surprise was lost. Near 2:30 p.m., we closed in on the village, and Major Reno was ordered to charge in with 3 companies, A, G, and M. I observed as they rode forward with Lieutenant Hare among their ranks. Our scouts dispersed, so I reported to Captain Moylan and attached myself to Company A. We got off our horses and formed a skirmish line near the settlement, but we were quickly flanked and overpowered. We fell back to a timbered area and then made a desperate dash for the high bluffs. The native warriors did not press their pursuit heavily, and we could discern severe firing from the opposite end of the village. On the bluff, we reorganized and discovered that Lieutenants McIntosh and DeRudio were absent, and Lieutenant Hodgson had been killed. Only 5 enlisted men and Lieutenant Wallace from Company G made it through, and we had lost more than a third of our total force. At that moment, Colonel Benteen arrived with his 3 companies, and the pack train came up with 1 more. This provided us with 4 complete companies, the remaining soldiers from 3 others, and some civilians, totaling about 300 men. We could hear a fierce engagement roughly 2 miles away, where Custer's 5 companies were embroiled in a desperate fight on the far side of the encampment. Once consolidated, we advanced along the ridge to support Custer, but after a mile we lost visual contact, and the sound of battle grew quiet. With injured soldiers and a slow-moving pack train, we assumed a defensive posture on the bluffs, ready for another onslaught. Our selected ground was defensible, with the horses secured in a ravine that was exposed from just one side. The combat continued intensely, and we held our ground until approximately 9 p.m., when the shooting subsided until morning. We did all we could to strengthen our defenses with what little we had, while the Indians pressed a continuous attack all day. Men were struck down rapidly, but the young troops swiftly transformed into hardened fighters, battling amidst the deceased and dying, surrounded by flies and insects, with a fierce resolve that belied their inexperience. We established a crude field hospital for about 40 wounded men, shielded by a barricade formed from our mules and horses. Any assaulting force would have to get past these animals first. I lack the words to properly convey the sheer terror of our predicament. We were without water, and the men became frantic. Multiple parties were sent out under intense fire to try and fetch some. Many were killed or injured in these efforts. The horses endured awful suffering, as they also had no water and could not consume the oats we carried without it. The fighting ceased on the afternoon of the 26th, and we saw the village was being taken down and its inhabitants departing. After nightfall, we shifted our camp a short distance to get away from the overwhelming stench of dead horses and mules. By the next morning, the Indian forces had disappeared, and the explanation became evident shortly after. General Terry was marching toward us with 5 companies of the 7th Infantry and 4 from the 2nd Cavalry to provide relief. They had met the Crow Scouts who had gotten away and had hurried to our assistance. They reached us around 10 a.m., uncovering the full, terrible scale of the tragedy. General Custer, along with his 5 companies, had been completely annihilated. Close to 300 men were dead, their bodies looted and savagely disfigured. 16 officers were lost. General Custer, Captain Keogh, Captain Yates, Captain Custer, Lieutenant Cook, First Lieutenant Smith, McIntosh, Calhoun, and Porter, Second Lieutenants Hodgson, Harrington, Sturgis, and Riley of the 7th Cavalry, Lieutenant Crittenden of the 20th Infantry, and Doctors Lord and Dowolf. Colonel Benteen and I sustained only minor injuries. I acquired 2 minor injuries, 1 in each leg below the knee, while leading a foot charge to drive Indians from a hilltop position where they were causing significant losses among our soldiers. It is distressing to reflect upon these occurrences. Mrs. Custer has lost her husband and his 2 brothers, one a civilian who was accompanying our column, and Mrs. Calhoun has lost her husband, 3 brothers, and a nephew, Mr. Reed, who was also with us. Half of the officers in our command have been killed, and the regiment has endured devastating casualties. I will provide more thorough descriptions at a later time. I have been given command of the surviving men of Company the Fern, which promotes me to 1st Lieutenant and elevates me to 11th in seniority. We are now camped on the site of our previous engagement from August 11th, 1873, and a steamboat has been sent to Lincoln to communicate with General Sheridan and receive his instructions. Yesterday we got mail from Fort Ellis that included a letter from Sheridan written a month ago, warning General Terry against dividing his command, as he had intelligence that no fewer than 5,000 warriors had assembled. I am certain we encountered about 4,000 of them. General Crook, with 16 companies of cavalry, is moving up from the south and, based on the dispatch, has been supplemented by the whole of the 5th Cavalry, granting him 28 companies to confront the same enemy we faced with just 12. This is a concise overview of our current circumstances. Please do not be anxious about me. Your loving son, Charles A. Varnum. If you were captivated by this raw, first-hand journey into a pivotal American moment, then you need to delve deeper with us. For more untold stories and historical revelations, make sure to subscribe to Rootvolutionary right now.